What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rewind in the Middle with me, Thomas Brandon, and of course, my man Keith Bradley. Keith, how's it going?
What is up?
Oh, not much, which is pretty crazy actually, because it's been nothing but chaos for me since we last talked a week ago. It's been absolutely nuts on the home front. How was your week?
Uh, it was pretty good. Took my son to his first ever Cincinnati Reds game yesterday.
Oh, nice.
So that was pretty exciting. And then my dad went too. It was his first game since 1977.
Wow,
So
that's cool, dude.
so we all
Yeah,
went
that's
went there
awesome.
yesterday, and it was pretty wild. Like my son was excited, and then we're at the game, and you could just tell that he was full of I'd say joy and emotion. I don't
Mhm.
think he's never been around that many people, and there's quite a bit of people there. And man, did he get a treaty! First ever MLB game in person. Got to see his first walk off at his first game, so that was pretty cool. I was
Yeah,
excited for
that's pretty awesome. Not many people get to see that in their life, let alone their first game.
him. No, and what was cool is so of course it was a walk off, and Nick Senzel hit the walk off. It was his first career walk off home run at that, and I was like, man, that's pretty awesome. I was like, I was never lucky enough to go to a game and see in my first MLB game see a walk off, and not only
Yeah.
just a walk off, a player's first career walk off. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, man. Yeah, my week hasn't been nearly as cool. So
No,
last Thursday, yeah, you guys, this is the week that I had, okay? And keep in mind, this is in addition to my 16, 17-hour work days and me working. I've worked. I don't have days off anymore. Easter was my last day off. Okay, I haven't had a day off since before or since then. So last Thursday, or well, first of all, last week it was I can't remember what day it was, Monday, Tuesday, something like that. We had sold our car. We had a this like 2007 Toyota Yaris. It was basically just a commuter car for my wife because she works about 30, 40 minutes away. And being that we're in California and gas literally costs, one of your arms and a couple of fingers, we got her this commuter car. And so she'd been using that. And my daughter had been using this other car of my wife's, this like a 2008 Honda Accord or something like that. Well, anyways, my daughter's 17. She's going to be graduating this year, and she's going to be going to a junior college next year. And the junior college is like 40 minutes away. And because her schedule is going to be, pretty spread out, like in college, it's not like high school where you take all your classes in this 1 6-hour block, right? Like in college, especially like JC's, like your schedule can be different days of the week, different times of the day. You might have classes that start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like it can be kind of all over the place. So my wife was really wanting to get Angie, who's my daughter, a car that she wouldn't have to worry about, right? Not that the car that she had already wasn't a very good car, but it does have 200,000 miles on it. And I was like, well, I'm like, babe, a Honda Accord with 200,000 miles is really nothing. Like, it's fine. It's been taken care of. It'll last. But, women and their kids, right? Mama Bear comes out and it's like, no, 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 I don't. She needs something better. I don't want to have to worry about it. It's like, all right, whatever. So we get her this newer car. It's like a 2013 or something. It's a cool little car, and it's only got like 80,000 miles on it. It was a single owner. They took really good care of it, right? So we got her that. So we had four cars. We don't need four cars, so we sold the Toyota Yaris. Okay. Well, Thursday after the podcast, I was coming back from work, and me and my brother were sitting at a stoplight, and this woman proceeds to slam into the back of us, just rear ends the hell out of us. And both of us are still, we don't know how she was going that fast. I have no idea how she hit it. She had to have been going like 35 miles an hour. Okay. When you're in stop and go traffic, that's fast. I don't know where she came from. I still don't know how she did it, but she slammed right into the back of us. and destroyed our, the glass rack that we had, and, smashed the left rear bumper and all this stuff like this. So it's like, God dang it. And I had just been telling my brother, "Hey, dude, I need to get that other car off the insurance because we don't have it no more." And my wife was going that day to do the release of liability and all that stuff like that. So Saturday, get back, I'm coming back from a job, and my brother calls, and he's like, "Hey, man, where's your white car?" And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about? We sold the white car. It's not ours no more." He's like, "Well, did you do the paperwork?" I'm like, "Yes, Sonia literally just did the release of liability like a day or two ago." He's like, "Well, the police are here right now, and that car was involved in a hit and run." And so your guys' name came up as the registered owners. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So I'm like, all right. So I call my wife and I'm like, Sonia, hey, you need to call the police department in Yuba City. I'm like, this is what happened. And she's like, well, I've got all the stuff right here showing that I did that. And it's like, okay. So she calls and it does all that, just obviously we get it straightened out, but just very, very stressful. So then we get all that taken care of. And then yesterday, to talk to really cap off the last 7 days. Yesterday, me and my brother are doing a windshield job, and we were cutting out the windshield with what's called a cold knife. And on the end of a cold knife, you have these blades that you can essentially change out. Now you have to imagine it's essentially like this flat piece of stainless steel. It's about as if you took your two middle fingers and put them together, it's about that wide. Now the thickness of it is they're not very thick, okay? They're probably only about a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch thick. And they extend up, they go straight up, they make a hard 90-degree right, and after that 90-degree right, you'll have this blade that comes off, and it can be anywhere from 2 inches to like 7 inches long. And it basically comes to a point. Imagine what essentially looks like an arrow tip, right? Like a bow and arrow, like a tip on an arrow. Okay. That's the kind of point that this thing comes to. It starts at the bottom, and from the bottom, it just gets narrower and narrower. It comes to this point. Both edges are sharpened. Okay. It's essentially a blade. It's what you use to cut the urethane that holds in a windshield. All right. So you know how well your windshield is in your car. Imagine the blade that you need to cut through that, right? And they call it a cold knife because you're not heating it up or doing that. You're just sticking it in there and dragging it. That's how strong and sharp those blades have to be. So yesterday we're pulling out a windshield, and my brother had set one of those blades on the dashboard or something like that. Well, it had fallen onto the floor of this Ford Expedition, and I stepped on it. Now, initially, I didn't know I'd stepped on it. We're pulling out a windshield, and I had felt this little tiny poke in my foot. Now, sometimes I wear hiking boots to work in, and sometimes I get, little rocks or gravel or stuff like that in my shoe, and that's what I thought it was. And then all of a sudden, my brother's got this windshield, and it's it's a 2022 Ford Expedition. It's a big windshield, and the wire was stuck or something like that. And I was like, hold on. And I jump out of this Expedition on my feet, and that blade proceeded to hit the ground and shove into my foot. And have you ever stepped on a nail, Keith?
Unfortunately.
Yes. You know that split, that tenth of a second, that half a second when your foot makes contact and your foot's going down and you know what's happening, but you can't stop your foot? You know
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what happened to me, but I was airborne. I wasn't taking a step. I had jumped out of a car and landed. And when that thing went in, I knew something was going in my foot. I didn't know what it was. And I immediately collapsed onto the ground. My brother and I said, "Ah, mother." And he goes, "What happened?" And I go, "Something's in my foot. And he's like, what? And I pull up my boot and he's like, that's a freaking cold knife blade. And I was like, oh my God. And so I pulled it out. This blade, it was like a 5-inch blade. And like I said, I had hiking boots on. So it's got like a 2.5 inch sole, but it went into my foot a good inch or two. And it went right in the ball of my foot. And I pull it off. And of course, it's bleeding and stuff like that. So I have to, clean it up, put a Band-Aid on it. My whole sock was full of blood yesterday. I'm still limping around. It actually hurts more today than it did yesterday because it's just so sore and tender from where it stabbed me. And then when I get home last night, the insurance company calls and they're wanting to talk to us about that damn hit and run accident because the car was on the insurance because I forgot to take it off I did it like a day or two after our accident, but that situation happened very, very close with the hit and run. And so now I'm dealing with the freaking insurance on the damn hit and run. So that's been my last 7 days. It has not been fun. So I've definitely looking forward to getting to just talk some racing because this is one of the highlights of my week. So yeah, that's been my last week, man. It's been absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine's not been that crazy,
Well,
fortunately.
yeah, well, everybody has them where you just have one of those weeks or just, a few days in a row where you're like, really? Is this really going on right now? Where it just seems like, something happens and then something else happens and you're just like, oh, come on, seriously? And that's just how this last week has been. And like I said before, I'm still working like crazy. This last week, I think I worked, it was 115 hours or something like that, and dealing with all this crap on top of it. And it's just like, oh my God, man, can we just get this week over with, please? So yeah, it's been nuts, man. It's been nuts. But
Well,
anyways,
hopefully this
glad to be
week goes a
back.
little
Yeah,
better.
hopefully it goes better, but glad to be back talking racing. We do got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Obviously we had NASCAR at Talladega. We got some news there. Big news coming out of the in the NASCAR world revolving Alex Bowman. Well, obviously we got to talk about that because it brings up a whole host of issues and questions and debates that we just went through 8 weeks ago with Chase Elliott. We got some sprint car news, not a whole lot, but just a little bit. There's a little bit of an uprising after the race last weekend at Knoxville was canceled. We do have an Ask 3 Wide question. If I can find it, because I had actually written it. I saw the email a couple days ago. I wrote it down and then I'm trying to find it in my file folder. So we might have one if I can find the damn thing. I don't remember where I put it, unfortunately. I was helping my daughter. She's doing her senior project right now, and she interviewed a bunch of kids at her school, and then she took all of that and we're making a video presentation. And editing is something that I'm not a professional at it in any means, but I'm capable. I do know some. I can edit do all my own editing and stuff like that. And so we were doing that, and I rearranged a bunch of files and stuff, and now it's like I can't find nothing. So what's one more thing? But anyways, um, so yeah, but I want to talk about this report that came out. It actually came out, I want to say about a week ago. It might have been about a week ago, but it's starting to pick up a little bit more traction now. Yeah, so it came out on the 21st. And it is in the USA Today, and it is the Reader's Choice 10 best, and this is the 10 motorsports races in North America that will satisfy your need for speed. Now, I don't know exactly what the guidelines or what was, used here to determine this, okay? In the sense that, if they're just like, hey, what are the 10 most exciting races? What are the 10 races that you want to go to? What's the bucket list? I don't know. Okay. But it's based on the readers. So the readers, the people who actually know racing or at least know something about racing, are the ones who are voting on it. Okay. And Number 10 was the Rolex 24 at Daytona, which I can understand. Even as somebody who doesn't go to sports car racing, right? I don't really follow sports car racing. The 24 hours of Daytona is one of those races that just as a race fan, I want to go to. Okay, because it's the 24 hours of Daytona, right? It's just one of those prestigious events. It's before the Daytona 500. You know, you've obviously got the IMSA sports car series is there, right? You got all these different cars there. It's just a really cool event. It's something that I've always wanted to check out, and apparently a lot of other people do as well. Number 9 was the WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca, another IMSA race. Now, I've always wanted to go to Laguna Seca because it's Laguna Seca, and then also it's in Monterey, California. There's not a lot that's good about California, but there is a few things. One of those few things is the coastline. Like it's nice, especially when you get down towards Southern California. So that's really good. But what I got surprised was number 8, and that's the Daytona 500. The Daytona 500 is considered this is the Great American Race. Okay, that's what it's called. This is the Super Bowl of NASCAR, and it is number 8 on this list. The Daytona 500 got beat by the Petit Le Mans, okay, the Grand Prix of Long Beach, the Chili Bowl, Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, which I would not have even thought of, the Knoxville Nationals, the United States Grand Prix, and the Indy 500. Now, I'm not shocked that the Indy 500 beat the Daytona 500, okay? But I think it really says something about not just NASCAR racing, but dirt racing to have the Chili Bowl and the Knoxville Nationals in the top 5, and the Daytona 500 is 8th. Keith, did you see this thing?
No,
This
but
report?
we briefly talked about it.
Yeah,
I'm shocked that the Daytona 500 is so far down, but with this new car, I'm not surprised.
me neither.
If
And
if
look,
they're basing it off the new car,
yeah, well, I think it's just kind of the overall like what people think of it now, right? You know, the Daytona 500, it's like the Indy 500. No matter what happens to the sport, that will always be a spectacle, right? There are people who watch the Indy 500 that are not even race fans. You know what I mean? They're not even race fans, but they're going to watch the Indy 500 because it's the Indy 500. It's just like
yeah.
people who watch the Super Bowl, right? Or whatever, because it's that event, they're going to pay attention to it.
Well, and I think, especially us Indianans, it's basically a holiday for us.
Well,
Through
yes, it is. It's like a month-long holiday, right? When you
Yeah.
talk about all the stuff that goes on, I mean, and that's really what
Well, and
makes the Indy 500 so awesome is all the preliminary stuff that happens with
yeah,
it.
yeah, I was gonna say, and I think the build up to the actual race helps.
Yes, it is. I think that's one of the things that the Daytona 500 has lost is the buildup. They don't
Oh,
have the buildup anymore.
100%, and I think we've preached about that since we've
Mhm.
started this dang podcast, is that's where the Daytona 500 ain't as special as the Indy 500. You don't have a build up coming into it.
No, you don't.
'Cause, I
No.
mean, yeah, you could say the Clash is somewhat of a build up, but even then, there's a week between the Clash and the Daytona 500, so it's like, is it really a build up? No, not
Well,
really.
and the Clash isn't in Daytona no more,
No.
you
No,
know?
so, I mean, when you lose touch with speed weeks and then you look at the Indy 500 where they got a week of what? Practice, qualifying, bump day,
Yeah.
and all that good stuff, and then there's all kinds of events through Indianapolis. It's
Yep.
just
Yeah,
it's
and
a
that's the thing
month-long
that
holiday.
yeah, and that's the thing that the Daytona 500 has lost. And if you look at take the Chili Bowl and you take the Knoxville Nationals, you have build up with that, right? When you start looking at the preliminary nights, you know, the Chili Bowl now, what is it? 6 days? 7 days long? I mean, it's an entire week now. When I went to the Chili Bowl, when we ran in it back in what was that like 2000 2001 something 1999 I can't remember. Okay. When we ran in the Chili Bowl, it was 4 days, I wanna say. You had practice on Wednesday, you had preliminary nights Thursday and Friday, and then racing Saturday. I believe that's what it was. Maybe it was practice Tuesday, preliminary Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then racing Saturday. Now it's like 6 nights of preliminary night racing, and you've got the finals on Saturday. And it's all day. And if you're there, what's even cooler about it is the trade show and stuff like that that you can go to. There anything and everything that you can think of that's racing is there. It's literally if you're a fan of racing, you don't even have to be a fan of dirt racing. The Chili Bowl is a bucket list event that you need to go to. Same thing with the Knoxville Nationals, right? When you think about all the stuff that's happening, the amount of drivers that show up for it, it's just a huge event. And then to cap it off, they're amazing races, right? They're amazing races. If I had to talk about, in terms of excitement, even if we even if we made it if we leveled the playing field in terms of the length of the race. So if we just said, look, the last 20 laps of the Daytona 500 versus the A main of the Chili Bowl and the A main of the Knoxville Nationals. I mean, I can tell you right now, out of on that list, I'm taking the 20 laps, the last 20 laps of the 500. I'm taking that last. I would much rather watch the feature for the Chili Bowl or the feature for the Knoxville Nationals.
Yep.
It's
I
better racing. It's more exciting. I'm going to see a whole lot more.
I think I would take the whole week of Knoxville Nationals over the Daytona 500 and the Chili Bowl both.
Yes, I've
I mean,
never
that's
been.
just me
I've always
personally.
wanted to go. It's on my bucket list. But yeah, to me, this list was not
Like
initially, I was kinda shocked by it, but after sitting and talking about it for a few minutes and thinking about it, I'm not surprised at all.
I love the Chili Bowl. It's just too damn drawn out. There's sometimes a yellow takes 2 minutes to clean up, and there's sometimes a yellow takes 5 minutes to clean up or 10 minutes, and it just by next thing you know, you're turning it off. Now, the Knoxville Nationals, I've never turned it off. It's always had me on the
No.
edge of the seat just because the racing's so damn good.
Yes, it is.
And it's a very prestigious race, and it continues to build in the prestigious category where the Chili Bowl really doesn't.
No, I think the
I'm gonna
Chili
get a
Bowl's
bunch of
kind of
flack for that comment now. I know it.
well, no, but I think the Chili Bowl has peaked. I think the Chili Bowl has peaked in terms of, you know, you're not gonna it's gotten as big as it can get. Unless they start, increasing the purse and doing all the things that we've talked about before, it's gotten as big as it can get. It's not gonna get any bigger. Right?
Right, and
Whereas the Knoxville Nationals, with more and more of these guys running sprint cars, and we've got so much more crossover, and it is becoming this thing where, sprint. To me, I think sprint car racing is only growing more and more, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we obviously love racing in this country, right? In North America, and to me, it's getting harder and harder to find really good racing. I really truly believe that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I really truly believe that, and I think you're seeing more and more people, right? If there's one thing that, that Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell or, these guys who go down and run these sprint car races, Alex Bowman, Ricky Stenhouse, that type of thing. If there's one thing that they've done, I think that they've helped to put a spotlight on sprint car racing, and it's helped it increase its popularity.
That I completely agree with.
Yeah.
That's one thing I can say about those that category of guys. They've not really forgotten where they came from,
No, they
and
have not.
they're really big on giving back
Yep.
to the dirt community. And now this ain't me saying, "Oh, well, they pay tracks and this, that, and the other." What I mean by give back, they show up. They when people know that, oh, Kyle Larson's going to be here, or Ricky Stenhouse, or the
Mhm.
Christopher Bells of the world, that puts asses in the seats. That brings more eyes to the sprint car sport,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
not just sprint car racing, but midgets. And Christopher Bell does the micro deal, and
Mhm.
I think it's great for dirt racing, and it just
Yep.
makes it that much bigger. And when the Kyle Larsons of the world shows up to the Knoxville Nationals, it just puts even more eyes on that one event.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm with you. I think the Knoxville Nationals, is going to keep growing. As we say in the football world, or as they say in the football world, Aaron Rodgers has reached a ceiling. The Chili
Yeah.
Bowl has reached its ceiling. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it can
really
get
think it
any higher.
has. No, I don't think you can get any more out of it, it's you can't
Now,
you
purse-wise,
can't
you
go to 8
can.
days.
No, no, but there I think the excitement is not in the Chili Bowl anymore, and hate to say it because I love midget racing. I think midget racing is some of the better racing outside of sprint car racing.
Yes. Yes, I give me give me USAC midgets on a high bank quarter mile, fast quarter mile. I There's not many other places
I
I'd rather
would
be in the world.
I would
There's
watch
not.
that over the Daytona 500, but that's
Yes,
just me.
absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, just it was really interesting to when I saw this, and it just initially my initial reaction, like I said, was God, that I can't believe look at what has happened to the Daytona 500, but more it became more of a positive in terms of that's incredible for the Chili Bowl and the Knoxville Nationals.
Oh, it's
Um,
huge.
it is. In fact, personally I think that you should have the Kings Royal and the National Open on this list above the Daytona 500. That's just where I'm at with it now, and it really does pain me to say that, but um, you know, it, yeah, that just we've talked about it at nauseum. With the Daytona 500, I think they've destroyed what made that couple weeks so incredible, and it's starting to show itself now. Even the USA Today readers are saying the same thing.
I
So
mean, how long do you think it'll take for the Eldor Million to get put on that list? Because I think that's just gonna continue to grow each year.
yeah, if they keep doing it, I think it will eventually get on the list. Now,
And
the only thing that would
I think the
the
only
only
thing
thing
that
that
would
would keep it
deter it.
on there though is the fact that it's been right. So it was late models. Now it's going to be sprint cars. Is this going to be something that they're going to do where it's going to be like this revolving thing? Is it going to be just one of those two
I
classes?
think
Like,
it's I think it's gonna keep going like one year, how last year is late models, this year it's sprint cars. I think it's gonna keep flip-flopping, which in my eyes, I think it's great
I
because
think that's awesome if they do that.
it
Yeah.
gives the late model community something to race for as far as big
Hmm.
money, and then the following year, you get the sprint car guys out, and they get to race for that million because I think we're going to see a record amount of cars at Eldor for this year's million. That's
I
just me
would think so
because
too.
you don't see outside of Knoxville Nationals and a couple other big races, you don't see a purse that big. I know Mansfield tried it up in Ohio and it fell apart and it flopped. But I think this is going to be big. I think it's going to be big for the sprint car world. I think you're going to see guys come out and run wing cars that's never really ran wing cars. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. I really do. And I think you'll start to see them running those wing cars leading up to it. You know, you'll see those guys, you know, the month ahead start hopping in sprint cars, local tracks, and stuff like that, where they're running more and more of these races to get ready for that. Because that's one of those things that it's like, okay, well, you've got to run that.
I mean, if I had a car, I'd try. I mean,
Hmm.
why not?
Oh God, yes, I would do it just to be there, just to run it. You know, so yeah, that would be incredible. So yeah, pretty cool, but just wanted to cover that because, like I said, I thought it was interesting and definitely worth a discussion. But when we get back from the break, we're going to be doing our hit or miss portion of the show. Got a couple things we got to talk about there before we hop into our NASCAR pick'em, and then we'll wrap up the show. So stick around. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Produxa. Look, you guys, when it comes to protecting and adding a mirror-like shine to your surfaces, you pretty much have two options. You can go with one of those low, quality products out there. Do the old school, like my parents used to do, use the old dish soap to wash your car, or you can go with Produxa. You guys, I've personally used this stuff and it works incredible, man. Whether it's their ceramic coating, their wash, their tire shine, and it not only looks great, but it's super easy to use. I mean, my 10-year-old son was helping me use this stuff, and we used it on my daughter's car, and the car literally looked new. And my daughter's 17, so you can imagine that the car did not look new before we washed it. So, if you want to actually give your car a mirror like shine while in the process protecting it, head over to produxa.com or the link down in the description below and check out their full line of products today. I can promise you, you will love them. All right, so it is now time for our favorite portion of the show, hit or miss, and we've got four topics to cover today. Um, Leading off with really big news that just came out on Alex Bowman. So, Keith, Alex Bowman will miss the next 3 to 4 weeks after hurting his back in a sprint car accident at 34 Raceway. He actually broke a vertebra in his back. So, HMS will apply for and should receive a medical waiver so Bowman can still run the playoffs. Hit or miss the mark?
I think it hits the mark. I mean, they gotta apply for the waiver. They gotta get the waiver. Now, I know this is going to open a box, a door, or whatever. It's going to open a new avenue to where you're going to have these people coming out saying, "Look, it's time for these guys to stop doing extracurricular stuff outside of racing." And I say, "Fuck that."
I'm
To be
with you.
blunt, you can't cage these guys up. You can't lock them in a room for what, 5 months from February to October, you or early November. You can't do that. They've got to have a way to get away from racing, whether it's going sprint car racing, going late model racing, going golfing. I mean, you could get hurt at a golf course. I mean, you can. We've seen Tiger Woods do it, but granted, he's been doing it
Yes.
forever. But there's still things that could happen. You could wreck a golf cart. You could go out to eat and walk across the street and get hit by a car. I mean, it's very seldom that it happens, and it's very seldom that injuries happen in sprint car racing. And this year, not sure who pissed off the sprint car gods, but I'd like to smack them in the mouth because we've seen a couple injuries. We've seen one fatal crash already this year, and we're not truly started in sprint car racing for the season. But I hope this doesn't deter Alex Bowman from jumping back into a sprint car because I think it's great for the sport of sprint car racing. I think it's great for NASCAR. I think it's great for Alex Bowman to get out of his comfort zone and do something different. And I think I, I think something to watch will be Kyle Larson. If Kyle Larson ain't running dirt races, I think that means Rick Hendrick put his foot down. Joe Gibbs put his foot down with his guys with Christopher Bell and said no more dirt racing. I think it's crap. I mean, granted, yeah, you've hired these guys to be in your car to represent these sponsors, and your sponsors are dependent on you. But you just can't cage them up like they're animals. And and something tells me I wouldn't be surprised in these crossover racers have something in their contract where sorry, you can't run dirt races. And if it was me, I wouldn't sign the contract. And I don't care how much money I would be losing. I I wouldn't lose touch with the grassroots. I mean we that's the only thing we're relying on right now with these guys is they've not lost touch with their grassroots, whether it's dirt racing, your local short track on pavement. I hope we don't see these guys put a stop to it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think they should get the waiver. Um, and I think that these guys should keep doing this stuff. I really do. I don't. I like the fact that Alex Bowman's still out sprint car racing. I do. Yes, it sucks he got hurt, and with everything that happened with Chase Elliott and stuff like that. Like I get it. where people are like, no, you can't do it, you can't set this precedence. But to me, you have to. Um, you know, it's just I'm with you. I think it helps both NASCAR and sprint car racing when these guys are doing this, and I think it's a really cool thing that they do. I don't want to see it end. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it hits the mark. All
Yeah,
right.
it also tells me that snowboarding's just as dangerous as racing.
It is.
I
It
I I
is.
I can truly think Hendrick Motorsports was just dealt a bad hand of cards this season. I mean,
I know. It's
it
crazy.
is what it is.
Yep, it's crazy. So, speaking of which, with another accident to a NASCAR driver, drivers should not be allowed to race or participate in extreme activities off the track. Hit or miss the mark. I mean, I know we just kind of talked about
I
this a
mean,
little
yeah,
bit, but
no, I'm gonna have to say it misses the mark because I think even looking at Denny Hamlin, does he do racing outside of NASCAR? No, but he has basketball tournaments. They play pickleball. They do all kinds of other things, and that's to you gotta decompress from their job. Just like
yes.
how us regular people, we have to decompress from our job.
Hmm.
Now, if my job was to come tell me, look, you can't go to your perfect North Slopes when you're not at work because we need you here. I'm sorry, I'm my own person. I'm going to live my life. I need a way to get away to have a breather from everything, just as these guys do. You
Yeah, you
cannot gauge them.
no, you cannot have a schedule that has 1 week off in 6, 8 months or whatever the hell it is, right? Starts in February, goes to October, and you have 1 week off. You cannot do that and expect these guys to do nothing but be in the sim or at the track. You can't do that. I
No,
don't
you can't.
care. I don't care how much you love racing. Folks, when I was in my teens and early 20s, all right, there was nothing that I wanted to do more than work in racing. That is what I did. I loved it. I absolutely
100%.
yes, I would have preferred to be a driver, but that was not in the cards. That's fine. I loved getting the midget or the sprint car ready every week. I loved blocking it and squaring the rear end and running the valves and doing all that stuff to get it ready for the next race. There's nothing more that I enjoyed than literally being in the trailer, right? Being in the hauler, working on the car, getting it ready for the race that we got the next night because we're traveling 300 miles in between each race, right? Like I loved doing that.
I mean,
And it
nothing
was
beat
a burnout after years and years and years of it. Like it's when you run like these guys do, you're gonna get burned out. You gotta
yeah.
have something else.
Well, and I agree with that. When you give these guys one freaking weekend off, one
Yes.
weekend.
Yes.
And I've heard the people say, well, the NFL gets one weekend off. Yeah, but they're not playing football for 8 months out of the year.
No, they're not.
These race car drivers, for crying out loud, they race on freaking holidays. Holidays that most people have off at work.
Yep.
And when they get one weekend off, I don't blame them one bit for going and racing on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night or hell even a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Um you can't cage these guys down. You
No.
cannot.
No, you can't. It's just it's not good
You
for
cannot
them. I don't think
handcuff
it's
them.
exactly. Yeah, I think you gotta let them. If they want to go out and race, I think you
Yeah,
gotta let
because you
them.
need a mental decompress. If not, you'll go stir
Yeah.
crazy.
You know? And I think it's cool when these guys do that. And like I said, and even not even that, but you look at last year when Corey LaJoy ran the modified at Martinsville, right? And he won. Like that was awesome. You know what I mean? Like that was just really cool to see. Right? If these guys hop in and they go do a cars tour race, or I mean, how many of you think we're gonna see? I mean, obviously Harvick's doing it, right? But at the during All Star Week at
I
North
think you can
Wilkesboro when the cars tour's there, like how many Cup guys do you think we'll see run a cars tour race, right?
I
Run that
think you
event.
will see a good handful do it.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome if they do that. And for NASCAR to
And
be like, well, we don't want these guys to get hurt. We're going to prevent them from doing those things. I think it would be a bad move and a bad look on their part.
and look, these guys are racers. There's nothing more than what they want to do is just race. Let them
Yep,
be.
exactly.
And I
So,
don't care if it's in a cup car, truck, Xfinity. I mean, what if Alex Bowman's to run the truck race at Dover or Xfinity race at Dover if they're even racing? I don't even know yet. And they get hurt there. What's the difference? There is no difference. There's not.
yes. All right. next up, we've got Bubba Wallace's block, or I should say blocks, on Ryan Blaney was a bad move, and it cost both Wallace and Blaney a chance to win the race at Talladega. Hit or miss the mark?
I'm gonna say it hits the mark. I mean, that the downfall is you're getting to the closing stages of the race, few laps left, you're doing anything you can do to win. I get what they were trying to do, but on the other hand, you're going for a win. Don't screw yourself at the same time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it hits the mark. The initial block that Bubba threw on Blaney, right down low, I got that. But when Blaney went high, Bubba's momentum had seemed already like it had been killed.
Yeah.
And for him to go back up again and try to block again, I thought it was bad. Now, here's the deal, and this is one thing that I will say. It's very easy to armchair quarterback this, right? For us to sit back Monday morning quarterback and be like, "Oh, well, we shouldn't have done that." I watching it, I can see how Bubba thought he could do that second block because, if I block Blaney, if I go down and I block Blaney like Bubba Wallace did, and then I can tell that it's killed my momentum, right? And then Blaney goes back up to the top. I'm gonna be thinking, well, I could get back up there. Right? I got down in front of him. It's slowed us down, right? He can't have that much of a run still on me, right? Like you're probably thinking, oh, I can get back up there again, which is probably what he thought. I mean, look, that's what these guys all talk about. Basically, when it's go time, right? When the pay window's open, you're either getting shoved or you're shoving somebody right down the track. And so I can see why he tried to do it. It was a bad move after that first block. I did not expect to see him to go back up. When I saw Blaney pull back up and Blaney still had a run, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he still got a run. And then when Bubba went up, I was like, that's not good. And of course it wasn't. It was a bummer. So, it sucked to see. I will give Bubba Wallace a lot of credit though, because I thought that might have been Bubba Wallace's best interview after an accident that I've ever seen. But I think there's a lot of times Bubba Wallace has complained or blamed others when it was like, "Hey man, you need to take some of that blame yourself." And I thought his reaction this last week was incredible for him to be like, "Dude, that was on me. It's just too close to the block. Shouldn't have done that." He thanked his spotter. He thanked his team. Like I was like, "Yes,
And
awesome,
and
good job, man."
I agree with that. I think that was
Yeah.
one of the best reactions after the race from Bubba. I mean, we've seen
Mhm.
him beat himself up. We've
Yes.
seen him downgrade himself, tell
Yep.
Denny, "Just fire me."
Yep.
And I get it to a point,
But
and I'm a
there's
Bubba
been
Wallace fan.
Me too, and me too, which is why I said, I think there's been times where in after incidents or post race interviews, it's like, oh man, come on, dude, don't say that, man. Just
Yeah,
thank your team and thank your team, thank your sponsors, your spotter. Hey, this is a bad incident, whatever, and then move on. And this last week he did that, and so although it sucks that he got caught up in that, I thought it was a huge moment of I don't know, growth or whatever you wanna call it,
oh,
because for that to
100%,
happen, for him to be
100.
right there to win, and I will and, side note, I was incredibly impressed with the race that he drove because I can tell you right now, if there's a restrictor plate race, he's one of the handful of people that you can count on at the front. Even with this current package,
And
which we talk about how hard it is to pass and stuff.
you know that, yeah, he doesn't have the wins to show for it on
No.
super speedways, but you know he's gonna be there at the end.
Yes,
He
and
he is
that's
a
all you
very
can ask for
smart he
these
is
days.
yeah, and he's a very smart super speedway races,
Mhm.
like, there's a reason why Denny Hamlin hired him.
Yes. Yep.
There's a reason why that they continue to support him.
Yep. Absolutely. So, yeah, it was a bummer of a move. I was sad to see him get caught up in it.
Oh, I hated to see it
But
because I truly thought he was gonna win. I thought he
yeah.
had a good shot at winning the race.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a drag race between him and Blaney coming down at the end, which would have been really cool to see. So, but yeah, bummer. But anyways, uh Last one, moving on. NASCAR's current restrictor plate and aero package for Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. There we go. That's a tongue twister. Really needs to be changed. Hit or miss the mark.
Hits a mark. I mean, this super speedway package just sucks.
I'm
Yeah,
with you.
yeah, we've seen the third lane come in, but as soon as
Yeah,
the
but Bubba
inside
Wallace was
lane,
about the only one
yeah,
who could pull the damn thing.
yeah,
You know what I
between
mean?
Bubba Wallace and I think Eric Jones did it
Yeah,
once.
yeah.
Outside of those, if the middle lane really side draft the bottom lane, that
Mhm.
third lane disappeared.
Yep.
I think we've reached a point in the sport of NASCAR where the third lane just is not there, and it
No.
won't ever be there till something changes with this car. And I can't really put a finger on what needs changed. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
multitude of things that needs to be changed, and you can just take the super speedway package and throw it out the damn window. Like it,
Yeah,
it, it bores me
it's
to watch it.
yeah, it's just not, the package that we had a few years ago, right, when we would see these cars and they would get these huge runs, you know what I mean? Um, and it was it they were incredible races. The whole race was good, right? Like we saw moves and passing and stuff. The whole race was good. And the first half to three quarters of the race was cool because is when that's when you got to see, well, who works well together, what cars do, right? Like if you're, let's just say you're Denny Hamlin, right? Who do I want to be hooked up with at the end of the race to win? Yes, right now I got to run with the Toyotas and do all that stuff, whatever, but like at the end of the race, when the pay window's open and it's time to go, who do I want to be with, right? We could see that stuff develop, and you saw these massive runs. And after those races, we heard a lot of the drivers talk about how, man, this is too dangerous, it's too crazy. And so I understand it. Now, where it's like we've gone to the other end of the spectrum. We went 180 degrees in the opposite direction, and it's like, okay, the cars don't get any run, and this sucks, and it's not very good, and it's essentially just side by side. It's just like pace laps at 190 miles an hour, right? That's boring. So how do we get to that middle point? I think one of the biggest issues that's causing a lot of the problems with this car when it comes to this aero stuff. I think it's the underwing, the diffuser and stuff like that. I really do. I think NASCAR for, essentially since 1980, what was it, 86, 87, right? Like, I mean, that was the first time you really started to see aerodynamics start to really come into effect, that 86, 87 car. And then when we got into the early 90s with the old Ford Thunderbird and Chevy Lumina and the Pontiac Grand Prix, like those cars, that's when it really became, it was like, all right, now this is something that we got to actually focus on. And it was always the same thing. It was over body aerodynamics, reduce the drag. You've got the spoiler, right? Like, what can we do with those things? And now you've got this underwing, this panned bottom that creates this enormous change when we start talking about, high and low pressure and downforce, and what's being, how much is being washed out the sides and pushed out the back, and how much is it sucking the car down, all these different factors. And when it comes to drafting, I think it's having a huge effect on the product. And I think it's something that NASCAR hasn't either accommodated enough for or factored into their equations enough or whatever. I don't know. Now it's all engineers. It's not like
To
it used to be where, you'd walk up there with the plumb bob and lick your thumb and go, all right, that looks good right there. Stick it, right? Like those days are gone, right? It's not just a template. So I do think they need to work on something. I do find comfort in the fact that if there is something that NASCAR has been willing to change and change quickly, it is the restrictor plate package. We've seen them change it, once or twice in a season where they're like, "Hey, next race we're showing up with this package." So
to be
will they
honest,
will they do that? I don't know, but
I would love to see them run a race one time without the diffuser, a super speedway race, just to see if it would improve it. If not a race, a test. Take 8 or 9 cars down there and do a pack test just to see if the diffuser either A helps it or B doesn't help it. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
It not work?
The
I mean, and that then that may not help it,
Yeah,
but
I
you
would
don't
I
know
would
till you
like to
try.
see that too. The only thing that would concern me there though is and it's because I don't know how the front of the car is. They have that front air dam, right? And then the air
Yeah,
goes in and it comes up and it goes out the louvers and stuff. I don't know if they take that floor off, how that affects the front. Yeah, that's the only thing I don't know. So, you're right. It might be really good, or it might be a disaster. I don't know. I
can't be
mean,
no
even
worse
if
than what we got now.
no, and even look, even if they just took off the rear diffuser, you know what I mean? Leave the floor, but just take off the rear
Yeah,
diffuser,
yeah.
you know? Because I think there's something to that. I really do. I think look, I mean, I think we could look at a bunch of different things as factors when it comes to that, right? When you start talking about the rocker boxes, the air that's being washed out, how much that can just kill your run when you side draft those cars. It's just, oh my God, it's like hooking a parachute to them. So there's a bunch of different things and a bunch of different factors, like we've talked about before with the short track package. It's not one thing. There's not this one cure all that you can just come in and fix everything. Um, but I do think that, whether they just put a bigger spoiler, a wicker bill or something, I don't know, something, because right now it sucks. And Daytona and Talladega used to be some of the funnest races on the schedule, and now it is so boring. It's
Yep.
just hard to watch. So, all right, so that's going to do it for hit or miss. But when we get back, we are going to be doing our NASCAR pick'em, and we'll be wrapping it up with our Ask 3 Wide. So don't go anywhere. All right, so NASCAR pick'em last week. Once again, I got a win. So I got a winning streak now. I've won 2 in a row, Keith. I'm coming back, man.
I'm not.
So I had Ryan Blaney. I had been saving Blaney. I was hoping I was going to get them bonus points, but I didn't. But I was saving Blaney for restrictor plate race, and he came through. You had Michael McDowell. Tough day for McDowell. I
Yeah.
don't remember
When he
exactly
went
what.
multiple laps down, I was like,
Yeah,
"Well, this sucks."
yeah. So anyway, so I will pick first this week. So I've got let's see, this week they are at Dover.
Over.
I gotta tell you, I'm really looking forward to that. These next the next the next few weeks the next month of racing I am really looking forward to, because we've got Dover, and then we've got Kansas, Darlington, and then Wilkesboro. Right now, obviously Wilkesboro is the all-star race, but I'm so this next month of racing I cannot wait for.
Oh, and then you got
Um,
the Coke 600. I think that was one of the
yes,
better races last year.
yes, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Then we've got the Coke 600 after that. So yeah, the next 5-6 weeks, man, I'm really looking forward to. It's one of the better parts of the schedule in my opinion. I love Dover. To me, Dover is a big Bristol. That's what it
Dover is
is.
awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the races that I would love to go to, and so yeah, I'm really looking forward
And
to it.
speaking of Dover, I gotta pat them on the back. Out of all the racetracks so far that they've been to this season, they're the only one that is sending Kevin Harvick out with the send off. They changed the turn four wall paint. Instead of it saying turn four, it says Harvick four. I think that's freaking awesome.
That is pretty
And
cool.
and it's crazy that it's taken this long for a team to throw a tribute out to Kevin Harvick,
Yeah.
one of one of the only last pioneers of the sport, and he
Yep.
can't even get any respect from the racetracks.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
we will also go to the other tracks twice, unfortunately. So maybe they'll do it then. Who
Yep.
knows?
Hopefully they do.
I just thought that
So
was neat when I seen it on
yeah.
Twitter this morning.
No, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So, all right. Well, I've, I don't shouldn't say I don't want to take him yet. I'm gonna have to take him.
You steal my pick, Tommy. Don't you
Uh,
do it.
I don't know who your pick is, man. I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson.
You mother.
Was that your pick?
Yeah, but it's all right. It's all right.
I'm going with Kyle Larson because last year at Dover, Hendrick, they swept the top 4 spots in one of the races. Did they go to Dover once or twice last year? I can't remember.
That's a good question because I can't remember either. I thought once,
I think they only went there once.
one time.
Yeah, and it was if I'm remembering correctly, the top 4 spots were all Hendrick.
He has the Hendrick Motorsports 500, I think.
Yes, yeah,
400.
and I've picked Bowman. Obviously, he's out. I could go Josh Berry, but I don't want to. I do think it's going to take a week or two, even though the car is similar. Berry was just in Chase Elliott's. It is a different
Yeah,
team.
got a
There's
new
some
team,
changes. Yeah.
new crew chief.
So I don't want to pick Chase Elliott yet because I'm not 100% sold on his leg. Dover is definitely different than Martinsville and Talladega. So you know, I don't know. I think I could probably pick Chase and be okay, but I don't know. I've been saving Larson for one of these races. I'm going to take him this week at Dover.
I like it. That was going to be my pick. So I don't like it. I like it,
Sorry,
but I
man.
don't like it. No, it's
Sorry.
okay. It's all right. I mean, you got to swing for the fences, and you're on a winning streak. So
Yeah,
what's worse could happen?
exactly.
Continue the winning streak. Well, damn. Since you stole my pick, now I don't know who I want to take. I tell you what, give me Denny Hamlin.
That's a good one. I
I'll
think
take DH.
I think the Gibbs cars have been strong, man.
Yeah,
And
and I think so too. And Denny's been pretty good at Dover
yes, he has.
till I picked.
Dover's such a unique track. You know what I mean? Because technically it's a short track, but it's not really a short track,
Races like a speedway almost, like a mile
Yeah.
and a half. Like it's
Yeah.
fast. It is really fast, but then it's got the characteristics of a short track.
And we see multiple grooves there. They don't it's wide enough to where you can have 2 cars. You can have a car in the middle and one on the bottom and still have plenty of room. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Dover and Bristol were the 2 tracks that they left out of the new short track package rules. Because like you were just saying, Keith, the way that the track races and the speed that they carry, it's more like a mile and a half when it comes to that stuff. So,
You know what? Scratch that. I'm gonna save Denny Hamlin. I'm gonna put him back in my pocket.
okay.
I'm gonna swing for the fence, and I'm gonna take Josh Berry.
Okay. All right. So we got the Hendrick battle this week. So I
The,
got
the
Kyle
more
Larson, you got Josh Berry.
the more and more I sat and just thought about it, like why I know we're gonna go to some stronger tracks for Denny. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like using that bullet right now.
Oh,
I'll
that's a
take a
good call.
flyer on Josh Berry.
That is a good
The last time
call.
he was in a next gen car, he finished on the podium. So
Yes, he's a good driver, man. I really like Josh Berry. That's
I
something I
think
would love to see him in a cup ride.
I think we see him in a cup ride next season. Whether it's I mean it's not going to be with Hendrick, of course, but it could be.
No, no,
These
yeah,
guys
you
could
never
get
know.
hurt, and they're going to lose a seat somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and like we were talking about earlier, if Christopher Bell goes somewhere else, right, that opens up
Yeah,
a spot at Gibbs. That's a coveted spot right there.
and Gibbs is known for taking flyers on older drivers. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
him go after Kenseth. We've seen him with Carl Edwards, and
Yep.
then Truex Jr.
Yep. So, all right. So that'll be interesting. So hopefully Dover's a good race. I like I said, it's one of the more one of the races that I look forward to more than others, just because, like I said, I just really like the way that it is. It's like a big Bristol. So, but to wrap up today's show, we got an Ask 3 Wide question from LO. I imagine that's initials, LO. I don't know unless you put that has to be initials, right? He didn't
It
put periods.
has
He just put LO. LO. I guess I guess that's I don't know. So LO. He said, Tommy, Keith, In your opinion, what is better preparation for the Cup Series? Would it be the truck or Xfinity? Thanks, LO. This is interesting. I haven't really thought about this, to be honest with you, just because, I don't how do I say this? How do I put this? For years, it was kind of a set path. And if you actually look at it, right, like this, when I saw this question, it kind of made me start thinking because we don't have that set path anymore, right? Where you would you would come up, you would do, you know, ARCA or whatever, right? Maybe you did super late models. You were in the NASCAR, wheel and tour, or something like that. You did something along those lines, and then you would get up there, maybe run some ARCA races or something like that, and then K&N series, whatever, and then you would get a truck ride, right? And then you would go from the trucks to the Xfinity, and then once you got to the Xfinity series, that was kind of your launching pad into the Cup series, right? Like if you did really well or you were in that pipeline with the team or whatever, one of their development drivers, like you got to Xfinity and now you were in what was essentially the minor leagues for Cup racing, right? Like that's where you're going to get called up. I don't think that's the case anymore because, first of all, this Cup car is so different. It's so unlike anything else. I don't think there's any need for that. I really don't. Right? It's got the same horsepower as an Xfinity car. I actually think the the only man, I don't know if there's one that's better. I think they're both kind of equal now, to be honest with you. I think in the trucks, the aerodynamic aspect of the trucks is so important. Learning how to kill runs, learning how to be around other cars while you're in the dirty air and race, because that happens in the trucks. A lot of the trucks, especially when they get to the bigger tracks, you're talking, above a mile and a half tracks, they're essentially wide open, right? They might be lifting a little bit, but it's a lot of the aero stuff, which we've talked about, just in an insane amount over the last few weeks with this Cup car. And then the Xfinity series, that car is harder to drive. You know what I mean? It is a harder car to drive than the Cup car is. So I think it can show your driving abilities, your driving talent, your ceiling. But I don't really think that. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Keith?
I gotta go with the Xfinity car, and the
Yeah,
reason why I say that is that car's edgy. It's
it
very edgy,
is.
and it shows who can drive and who can't. I think with the truck series, like, and this is no fall to the truckers.
There's
I
a lot
just
of slapdicks in the trucks.
Dude, there's a ton of slapdicks in the trucks, and I think it builds more bad habits than good. I mean, we've seen the bullshit Carson Hocevar's pulled. I just don't think that's good for racing in general, but
Yeah,
there's a
that
reason
dude,
why I'm
that
sitting here
stuff.
talking about it, and he's
Mhm.
actually doing it. But that being said, even when Haley Deegan jumped in a lower tiered Xfinity car, she showed that she belongs.
Mhm.
And and I mean, even with the Ty Gibbs, we didn't see him run a single truck race.
Yeah.
He ran strictly Xfinity and
Yep.
ARCA. And now I think the path is, if you can show that you're a damn good Xfinity racer, that translates over to the Cup Series.
Yep.
I think that's the path now. But then again, who knows at this point? But I got to go with the Xfinity Series just because the cars are a ton harder to drive and they're not so aero dependent.
Yeah. Yeah, I I remember when the new generation of Xfinity cars came out, and I remember seeing them and being like, "Dude, that is what they should have in the Cup Series." I remember
Yep.
thinking that, and ever since then, I think the Xfinity car has
Nothing
been the superior one. Like, it really has.
nothing looks more intimidating than that Toyota Supra in the Xfinity series. Even the Ford Mustang
Yeah.
and the Chevy, I just think they look meaner. They look more aggressive.
Yep.
Um, I was
100%, man.
excited when the first body came out or the new body came out.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that I got to go with the Xfinity series. Sorry to the truckers, but you guys are slap dicks.
Yeah.
Every one of them are.
Yeah,
I mean that, and
they're
that's
some
sad to say.
clowns.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's a ton of clowns. It's almost like, what the hell are you doing?
Yep. Yeah. So, thanks for the question, Elo. Really appreciate it.
I mean,
If you
yeah, it's a
guys
true
wanna
stumper.
ask us a question what was that, Keith?
I said it's a true stumper. Like you
Yeah, it is.
can go to either truck or Xfinity, but I think I have to lean Xfinity. And
Yeah,
granted, yeah, I've never raced any of them, but I would have
me
to.
neither.
Teams would rather see guys in Xfinity than trucks, and then move them to Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right on that. So, but all right, that's gonna do it for our pod today. I hope you all have a great weekend. Keith, my man, thank you very much. Everyone out there, thank you for listening. Please download,
Sir.
share, subscribe. Enjoy this weekend's racing. It should be a good one, hopefully. And yeah, if you do that, we'll be back to do this all over again next week. Hopefully, the week will be better this week than it was last week. So that's what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
hoping.
no kidding.
Fingers crossed. So we'll see. But that'll
You
do it.
need to
Thank
find
you.
you a rabbit's foot for this
Oh
week.
my God, seriously. I need to find a couple of them. So, but that's going to do it, everybody. Thank you very much, as always, for joining us. Like I said, please download, share, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And if you do all that, we will be back here next week to do this all over again. So, Keith, my man, have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Everyone out there, have a good weekend. Take care.